Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Sherrod. I will be presenting my leadership analysis for bringing it all together for my leadership and organizational principles class. As a 2.5 decade professional in the facility management world, I've seen projects develop leaders and supported teams. This presentation's central theme will be supporting employees is essential, but support becomes harmful when it delays clear standards and transfer unfinished work to the leader. As you see in these two pictures here, it was my time at the Fox Theater where I oversaw the repaving, resurfacing of the loading deck at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia. During that project, I oversaw 10 contractors who completed the project on time and under budget. This provided the result in keeping the Fox Theater's busy and expensive Broadway schedule and productions on time. The interview I conducted was with an account director who oversaw a team of 20 people. The main challenge that was pointed out throughout the interview was that the issue is not too much care, it is care without consistent systems. His choice of leadership was the servant leadership. The recommended approach preserves servant leadership while adding ethical management processes that make expectations visible and fair. And as you can see on the slide, you have the servant leadership that builds trust, access, and development culture, plus ethical management, which clarifies standards, feedback, authority, and consequences, which equals compassion, becomes sustainability when it develops responsible followers and protects mission capacities. And the lens that throughout this presentation will be employee growth, procedural fairness, service reliability, and leadership resilience. My participant's leadership profile. The theme throughout his interview was that leadership strengths creates trust, but also it enabled over-reliance. There was 4 major themes that popped up that prove that leadership profile statement true. The first, communication. Communication throughout this interview was to clarify company objectives. Next, relationships. In a servant leadership approach, relationships improve awareness of employee needs. Third, hands-on support. In being a servant leader, the leader was wanting to be in the field with his employees, which also in turn resulted in protected urgent services outcomes. Last but not least, culture building. Culture building was seen throughout this interview as promoting engagement and improvement. The strengths of these 4 themes. And I'll let you read it. Big thing was the limitation. Was repeated intervention shielded gaps from formal education. This is an application problem, not a rejection of servant leadership. Main leadership challenge, the core diagnosis. I identified 3 features that impacted this case that weaken accountability and obscured capacity. The first, delayed accountability. This was seen through missed deadlines, continued before progress corrections begin. Second, leader overextension. This was caused due to the leader absorbing so much of the operational burden that his capacity was taken up by ensuring emergency work orders were completed. Third, unverified competence. Due to training completion, did not prove reliable workplace performance. Basically, this translates into why is your leader stepping down to the employee's level to complete these emergency work orders. Overall theme, short-term completion conceal long-term capability burnout. System analysis. So in front of you, you have the reinforcement loop. This loop will emphasize that emergency intervention may still be necessary. However, governance fails when intervention procedures are not documented, followed up, or taken full ownership. And we'll start with first, you have the rescue cycle. The rescue cycle starts when standards are missed. When standards are missed, your leader steps in to complete the work. When the work is completed by the leader, the gap stays hidden that the leader intervened. And last but not least, correction delayed. When correction delayed occurs is when the leader, months later, a week later, have to go back and give the employees who could not figure out the training. Again, on the bottom, the theme of the slide is document every intervention as a learning event with ownership and follow-up. This means the employees who could not complete or repair the emergency work order needs to be taught, documented on the job training by the leader, and it's documented. Now that we've been through the rescue loop, let's understand it from an ethical perspective. In front of you, you would use organizational justice to show that accountability is not a punishment. Fair process includes equitable workloads, consistent decisions, respectful treatment, and adequate explanations. Basically, organizational judgment is used to protect both the employee receiving the feedback and the coworkers carrying the operational burden until that employee is qualified enough to complete the work on his own. On the left, you see care includes respect content, develop employees, preserve dignity, and servant leadership does that. So what was missed in the original diagnosis? So there were 4 sources of organizational risks from a governance point of view. They affected continuity, fairness, the client credibility, grievance, defensive, and life and safety performance. So the first source of organizational risk was supervisor capability. Basically, can mid-level leaders coach, document, and decide? In this case study, that was missed due to the fact that the leader completed the work and moved on to the next emergency without documenting. Second was the workload realism. Do the labor hours match the demand and priorities? We wouldn't know that because the labor hours were not documented by the leader in the specific leadership challenge. Third, succession coverage. We still don't know that because can operations continue without the one central leader? In this case, we don't know. And last but not least, life safety exposure. Are the critical tasks restricted to verified authorized staff? We still don't know that, but from an outside looking in, having the leader complete all these emergency tasks, you would think it would be. But the theme of the slide through all 4 of these risks is governance implications. Dependence on one leader is an operational control weakness. Now that we've figured out what we have missed, so how do we solve those problems and convert them into good intentions and disciplined service? So there were 5 methods to do that. The first, fair accountability, meaning you provide clear roles to your employees through prompt feedback and proportionate action. Next, verified competence, meaning you're demonstrating supervision, practice, and documentation of the work. For instance, if you have to step in for an employee and you're the supervisor, you should document that and then confirm that the employee is trained to do this specific task. Next, develop people. The main thing in leadership, like I said before, is development and accountability. In this certain situation, we would want the leader to coach, Delegate authority and speaking up would save the leader so much time in solving work order, save time at the appropriate level to complete emergency work orders. Next, protect capacity. By the leader doing the first three, the leader now has time to focus on his tasks to ensure his people are trained and accounted for. Last but not least, focus reporting. Focus reporting, safety is first, as we all know. Next, overdue work, defects, and corrective actions. All this has to be documented. So when your leader goes in and fixes a problem and moves on to the next day, if there's not a gap or a misunderstanding or a question that your frontline employee does not know how to complete the task at hand. Now that we've identified the leadership problem, we've identified the gaps, and we identified what we missed within our solution, I have created a 12-month roadmap to solve those problems. Basically, this sequence begins with understanding our risks and clarity, which is not punishment. However, we do want to look at supervisory development and employee feedback occur before we go into a deeper root cause analysis and standardization. So as we see here, month 0 through 3, we're going to set the baseline, and that is through clarifying standards and setting expectations. Months 4 through 6, we're going to build relationships, train supervisors, and launch the accountability process so we can also account for when those emergencies are missed. Last but not least, within that month 6 is delegate the authority for those mid-level managers in the specific leadership problem to complete the work and have the authority to complete the work. Months 7 through 8, we want to learn from the patterns. We want to review the escalations. Basically here, we're making trends and patterns. Weeks 10 through 12, we want to standardize our process. Now that we've set the baseline, we've built leadership, we've learned from our trends and patterns. We are now reviewing our KPIs, embedding our onboarding and development, and also checking for return exceptions. And all these themes come together to prove continuous employee feedback, leader calibration, and document follow through will make this 12-month roadmap go smoothly. To ensure this roadmap works, we want to ensure that we have oversight. And oversight should be measured through reliability, learning, fairness, and capacity. And I'll just give you a second to read the slide. Throughout the slide, our goal is to ensure that every exception needs an owner, due date, and escalation path. Once we have our exceptions met, we have 3 governor exceptions to reinforce accountability. You see them here as visible standards set by your supervision, verified competence done through assigning critical work, documentation of work completed, and last but not least, the capacity transparency. Does reported performance reveal the true cost of labor? In summary, accountability is part of service because it protects employee growth, team fairness, client reliability, and the leader's ability. We want to sustain service requires both humanity and discipline. Here are the scholarly references that I used for this slide. I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy day to listen to this brief leadership assessment. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email at sharad01@email.franklin.edu. Or if you want to rewatch this presentation, feel free to go to my YouTube channel. Thank you.